In recent hours, wars have clearly worsened, unlike that so-called Middle East peace that seems gone. While Israel and the Gaza extremist group accuse each other of violating the ceasefire, Trump expands American force. From the Caribbean to Asia, no one can predict where the next clash will erupt. In the Caribbean, the United States moved against Venezuela. New coastal strikes exterminated militia members, with destroyers patrolling and F-35 fighters overhead. In Europe, Trump prepares to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, pushing NATO and Russia to full alert. As I said, in the Middle East, the Gaza ceasefire hangs by a thread. Israel and the Gaza extremist group trade accusations, while new wars reignite in Africa and Asia. Sudan, Congo, and Myanmar are unraveling, and fear grows that everything links and spins out of control. It feels like the planet is in a global war, but won't admit it. Each crisis fuels another, and diplomacy can't keep up. The risk is that this cycle crosses borders and drives the world toward a collapse with no way back. We all feel a bit of this global war every day, whether fearing conscription or paying more to live due to incompetent geopolitics. Tell us if things are okay where you live or if your country has been hit by this crisis. Just a reminder, this report is based on news from Sky News, The New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, Sputnik, RT News, and Telegram. But before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means a lot and helps you stay updated on every story about the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more. Trump confirmed another strike off Venezuela's coast. A Venezuelan boat was destroyed by United States aircraft, killing 6 Maduro-linked militants. The Pentagon calls it routine, but the rising tempo of operations shows tensions in the Caribbean are still climbing. Trump confirmed another strike off Venezuela's coast. A Venezuelan boat was destroyed by United States aircraft, killing 6 Maduro-linked militants. The Pentagon calls it routine, but the rising tempo of operations shows tensions in the Caribbean are still climbing. Venezuela fired back. It ordered its embassies in Norway and Australia closed and said it will review foreign policy. For Maduro, the country faces direct threats from Washington and must prepare for a larger aggression. In the United States Senate, Republicans blocked a bill to limit Trump's authority to approve military strikes. That keeps his blank check for air and naval missions anywhere, a path that could push the Caribbean to the brink. Analysts say today's American fleet, with F-35B jets, Reaper drones, and destroyers loaded with Tomahawks, is the most powerful seen in the Caribbean in decades. If Trump truly unleashes it, who could still contain the damage? Satellite images show Marines landing at bases near Puerto Rico. Meanwhile, suspicious tankers are closely tracked by U.S. aircraft. Many believe the United States is gearing up for a large-scale operation. Caracas reacted immediately. It carried out military maneuvers, activated electronic warfare systems, and claimed American destroyers invaded its economic zones. The government warned that if it happens again, it will respond proportionally without warning. Russia and China joined the dispute, defending Maduro and accusing Washington of trying to destabilize the Caribbean. Beijing warned that a direct confrontation would endanger vital energy routes through the region. Tensions are becoming global. Meanwhile, European diplomats tried to negotiate a truce. Talks failed and tensions worsened. NATO already sent secret observers to monitor fleet movements, fearing a miscalculation could turn the Caribbean into a war zone. Amid official silence, rumors spread among the military. If Venezuela is proven directly involved in the attacks, Trump could authorize ground operations abroad. And if that happens, the conflict won't stay at sea. This Caribbean crisis is already hitting Eastern Europe. Trump prepares to approve sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, a decision expected after his meeting with Zelensky in Washington. Russia has already responded with direct threats. The Kremlin warned that if the United States sends long-range missiles, it will be seen as direct intervention. They called it a hostile act and promised an immediate response. The escalation is becoming dangerously intense for both sides. NATO raised its alert level. European generals say Russian drones are now more advanced, using systems that trick radars. The alliance is rushing to strengthen anti-air batteries and radars to match this new type of Russian strike. Russia struck a hospital in Kyiv, destroying part of its facilities. It was the week's deadliest attack, leaving many injured. The bombing came just before Zelensky's arrival in the United States to request more military aid. And tensions between NATO and Moscow keep worsening. If Trump authorizes the Tomahawks and Russia responds with tactical weapons, the war could cross borders and turn Europe into the new epicenter of a global crisis no one can control. In Brussels, Kaja Kallas announced that the European Union will invest 10 million euros to create a tribunal to judge Russia for aggression crimes. She also wants a defense plan to intercept drone swarms that have become a terror for troops. Russia responded claiming it shot down 40 Ukrainian drones over Belgorod and Voronezh. Moscow also said it gained new positions in Kyiv and Donetsk, trying to show it still has battlefield advantage despite Western sanctions. Western intelligence discovered Moscow is producing drones made of composite materials almost invisible to radar. This technology shortens NATO's reaction time and makes Russian strikes even harder to stop. Inside the European Parliament, deadlock reigns. Some nations want to send more weapons to Ukraine. Others say the political and economic cost is too high. Public support for arming Ukraine drops with every new Russian attack. And the worst part is it looks like Russia's next offensive will coincide with Trump's announcement. If both sides move simultaneously, Europe could be dragged into a military crisis that even the world's biggest powers won't be able to stop. Reports from Al Jazeera show the European Union building an emergency plan against Russian drones. The goal is to deploy sensors and automatic interceptors across Poland, Latvia, and Lithuania, forming a digital shield over Eastern Europe. Kaja Kallas said this is the decisive moment for European sovereignty. For her, the tribunal against Moscow isn't just about justice, it's strategy to stop Russia from attacking without paying a political and financial price. The Kremlin intensified bombings in Kyiv and Donetsk, using precision missiles and bombs designed to destroy railways and power substations. The goal is to choke Ukraine's logistics before new weapons arrive. Ukraine revealed that Russians are using modern kamikaze drones equipped with radar jammers. Each carries about 50 kilos of explosives and can attack in swarms, making them nearly impossible to shoot down all at once. Experts believe that if Moscow combines these drones with hypersonic missiles, Europe's air dominance will collapse, and everything could change within 48 hours if the confrontation between NATO and Russia gets out of control. NATO strengthened its borders with new Patriot batteries, early warning planes, and surveillance ships in the Baltic Sea. Pilots report daily interceptions of Russian jets approaching dangerously close to Allied airspace, testing Western patience. Poland reported Russian drones crossing its border on reconnaissance missions. The government activated emergency sirens and asked NATO to turn its air patrol mission into active defense. The atmosphere is one of imminent war. In Estonia, the government reported that Russian MiG-31 jets violated its airspace for 12 minutes before retreating. The incident pushed the European Union to discuss new sanctions, including freezing bank accounts of generals tied to the Kremlin. Latvia and Lithuania requested permanent American troop reinforcements. The idea is to create a military deterrence corridor between the Baltic Sea and Belarus. Fears grow that Russia is testing NATO's limits before something worse happens. Northern Europe has become a silent front line. Any radar or aircraft miscommunication could cause catastrophe. If a missile or drone crosses the wrong border, the response could ignite a direct conflict no one is ready to contain. In the Middle East, Trump announced the end of the war in Gaza after the final hostage exchange. Israel reacted with suspicion, demanding security guarantees before opening its borders. It feels like a tense truce, with eyes on any move by the Gaza extremist group. The Red Cross warned that recovering the bodies of executed hostages will be one of the hardest missions ever. Entire neighborhoods lie in ruins, full of debris and unexploded bombs. No one knows how many victims remain under the rubble. Israel drastically cut humanitarian aid to Gaza, conditioning it on the return of hostage bodies. International organizations call it collective punishment, saying the country is violating basic rules of war. Witnesses said Israeli soldiers opened fire on civilians approaching troops in northern Gaza. The incident sparked outrage at the UN, which demanded urgent investigations and called for safe humanitarian corridors in the area. Even with the ceasefire in place, everyone knows peace is fragile. Any provocation could reignite fighting. And if that happens, the Middle East will plunge again into a cycle of revenge and destruction that no one can stop. In Tel Aviv, ministers defend the idea of preventive security, allowing surgical strikes on suspected Gaza extremist group targets. The logic is simple: eliminate any threat before the group can reorganize and strike again underground. The Gaza extremist group released videos showing active fighters in northern and central Gaza. The group accuses Israel of breaking the ceasefire and warns that if aid restrictions continue, it will resume armed operations without warning. Meanwhile, American diplomats are trying to broker a lasting deal involving the return of bodies and recognition of temporary borders. Washington wants to ensure no spark reignites the conflict, but so far, no consensus. In Yemen, Israel struck the port of Hodeidah, controlled by the Yemen extremist group Allies of Iran. The bombing destroyed fuel depots and was seen as a direct message to Tehran. Any move out of line will get an immediate response. This mix of crises worries the White House. Trump faces a divided Middle East, with Iran testing limits and Russia aligning with rebel factions. If these axes unite, the global balance could turn to dust in a matter of days. In Sudan, the trial of Vice President Riek Machar reignited ethnic conflicts and armed protests. The country has slipped back into civil war, with cities overrun by militias and the government losing control of much of its territory. Airstrikes hit shelters in El Fasher, exterminating more than 60 people. Drones were used in the attacks, and humanitarian groups warn of a real risk of international crimes. The UN says violence in Darfur is at its highest since 2003. In 2025, civilian deaths in Sudan have surpassed all previous records. Human rights organizations report summary executions and ethnic massacres in Darfur, where militias fight for control of mines and illegal trade routes. In Congo, the government and M23 rebels signed an agreement in Doha to monitor the ceasefire. The treaty, mediated by Qatar, includes foreign observers, but few believe it will last long. Hours after signing, rebels resumed attacks on army positions in North Kivu. Even with the pact in force, the war continues, and analysts warn that this fragile peace could collapse at any moment, reigniting the conflict. In Southeast Asia, Myanmar's military junta intensified attacks using light aircraft and armed paramotors. More than 20 people were exterminated in villages near the Thai border, showing the regime has no intention of giving up power. These aircraft dropped fragmentation bombs and handmade incendiary devices, flying low to evade radar. Civilians panic at every flyover, and rebel groups struggle to respond to such unpredictable attacks. In Rakhine, hunger has turned into tragedy. 16 million people face severe food insecurity. Road blockades and economic collapse have pushed the country to the brink of a humanitarian disaster that worsens weekly without enough international aid. Human rights reports say military repression has crossed every line. Arrests without warrants, disappearances, and public executions are now routine. The army treats any critic as an enemy of the state and eliminates them without trial. Experts warn that if the war in Myanmar continues while Sudan collapses, the world could face two massive humanitarian crises at once, and depending on how world powers react, it could ignite new regional wars. Today, with wars raging across 4 continents, global diplomacy seems exhausted. Sanctions, courts, and promises of peace mix while drones and missiles define power. It feels like no one controls the direction of these conflicts anymore. Venezuela faces American destroyers, Ukraine struggles to survive Russian attacks, and the Middle East walks on a ceasefire that could collapse. Africa and Asia teeter on the brink. Each failed agreement brings the planet closer to another abyss. Even with UN and Vatican calls for a global ceasefire, powers keep fighting over energy routes and influence. War has become routine, and peace only a short pause before the next bombing. Analysts warn that if these tension hotspots merge, the world could face its largest wave of conflicts since World War II. The coming weeks will determine if there's still any room to avoid total collapse. We all live a bit of the global war every day, either fearing being drafted or paying the price of poor leadership. Tell us honestly, is everything okay where you live, or has your country already been affected by this global crisis? Thanks so much for sticking around until the end of the video. You're awesome, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any updates on the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more.